Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Agent Growth Podcast. And as you can see here, I have a special guest today. We're actually recording in her living room and here in Austin, Texas. So I'm super excited to have you here. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And before we get started, so if no matter what platform you're on, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, make sure you follow or subscribe to this podcast so you can get all of the updates every time we release a new episode. And I'm so excited to have Melissa here today. She's a 5-time icon agent at eXp Realty, and she's just amazing when it comes to closing transactions, especially with her story of how she got into real estate and even transferred over to eXp and 5 years in a row being an icon agent. If you don't know what icon agent is, it's basically a top producing agent status at our brokerage where they can actually in turn, basically get back their entire commission split, their cap that they paid in the form of company stock. So it's an amazing accomplishment at our brokerage. So I'm happy to have you here to share your story here. So to get started, I want to talk about how you got into real estate because I think it's a really interesting story.
So thank you for having me here, guys. I am Melissa Hudson, and I have been in real estate for about 12, 13 years. I always say about because sometimes I forget how long I've been doing this. But yeah, so what got me into real estate was, honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you, it was a time in my life where it was like survival mode. I was a mother of 2 kids, a single mom, and I had worked in state government for 15 years. So I got into it pretty early on, and I was behind a desk and it was driving me crazy and I wasn't making enough money to make a living. So I took a leap and I went into real estate, and it was the scariest thing ever, I'll admit, because there was no guaranteed income, and you get out of real estate, at least income-wise, what you put into it work-wise, right? And it doesn't transition quickly. It can take 1 to 2 years before you really see things moving and shaking. So state government, 15 years. I went to Keller Williams Realty. It's where all the new agents went because they had great training. And I started doing anything I could to get business. I was doing leases. I got lucky to get a couple listings my first year. It was kind of like, hey, this is really going to happen for me, right? So things were not as consistent as I thought. So I ended up joining a team. And the team that I chose to go with, they were hiring buyer's agents. And I didn't know what it was like to be on a team. So this was all new to me, right? I get in, and at the time, back in the day, if you were an agent and you wanted business in a growing metro area like Austin, you purchase Zillow leads. This particular team lead purchased Zillow pre-foreclosure leads, which is not the same as Zillow leads, right? So if you're an agent and you're familiar with Zillow, you know that you pay for a particular market share, and you don't get 100%, right? You may get 10% of a certain metro area or a certain market, and you pay a lot of money. It's very expensive. I found out later what he was paying for these leads, but at the time we were on the hustle. I would never advise today a team lead to do what I did back then, which was answer the phone. Hi, I'm calling about this home that looks like it's going to get foreclosed on. Fantastic. Let me look at that house. Okay. There's no existing listing. They're just seeing it on Zillow because somebody was late on their mortgage for almost 90 days. So it became a pre-foreclosure. So my job was to find a house in that neighborhood that I can take them to tour. So I'm immediately in the MLS. Okay, that one's not available to tour today. However, there's these other homes that you can see. And sometimes under an hour, I'm on the phone and meeting someone at a property, completely blind, sight unseen, haven't vetted them. And that's how we did business back then.
It's not necessarily the safest way.
It's not safe, and it's very scary, and I would never do that today.
Right.
But I was on the hustle back then. I was hired to be a buyer's agent.
So no vetting the buyer, no asking pre-approval, nothing.
Right.
Just you want to see a house.
Exactly. So nowadays you can't do that. You've got to get representation. You have to vet the buyer. I mean, ideally you want to see if you can qualify this buyer before you start touring homes. At least you want to meet with them. And I wasn't even doing that. And none of us were doing that. So it was, it was one of those times where you were just like, if I want the business, I got to go get the business.
Right.
So And when you work for a team, you do have a split. This particular team had a really high split. So I wanted to own my own numbers. So if I wanted the money that was going to make me happy and make everything worth my while for quitting, a guaranteed 15 years in state government, I had to close 8 to 10 deals a year. I mean, a month. I'm sorry, 8 to 10 deals a month, which is what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
That was a lot. So I got a lot of experience being on that team, but it was a different time and it was a different process, and things run differently nowadays for most teams.
Okay, so let's back up. So before you joined the team, how long did it take you to actually get your first deal?
Like the first week.
The first week?
Or maybe not the first deal, but my first lead.
First lead. And then for your lead
closing
generation from start to finish, what was the number of days or months that it took you to actually close that deal?
I was getting deals immediately, and I probably closed a deal in the first 3 months or less. It was probably like...
So you just hit the ground running.
I just hit the ground running.
And that's probably what kept you in here, because most agents, 87% fail in the first 5 years, and then in 78% their first year. And in Texas, the statistic is that 90% of the business that's done is done by 10% of its members.
Yeah.
And so for you to hit the ground running in less than a few months, have deals, that's pretty good. So how many deals were you doing before you actually went to the team? How many have you?
I had a listing that I got terminated because it didn't sell quick enough for that seller. I had a really old friend that trusted me with a listing in a really popular part of Austin. We closed that, and I probably had a handful of leases. And around the office, I started to become known as the lease queen. And if you had a lease, give it to her. And if you're an agent and you're starting in the business, absolutely do your leases. I'm a 5-time icon agent. Guess what? I still do leases.
We were just talking about one a few minutes ago.
We were just talking about a lease. So there's no shame in leases. It still puts food on the table. But I had this click in my mind, and I thought, I am working so hard for these leases. I really want buyers. As hard as I'm working for these leases, I can really be dynamic at obtaining buyers, right? So that was the transition going on to the team. Was I had an expectation of getting the leads, but leads are only as good as your conversion. So
correct. You
live and you die by your conversion and your follow-up. So
but before we move on, so I love that you talked about leases, because this is one of the things that when we interview agents to join our rev share, one of the first things is, I don't want to do leases. And to me, I think that's one of the dumbest things I've heard, even from producing agents, because when I ask them their numbers, they're not doing deals. So why wouldn't you put some money in your pocket? Because you're going to have renewal fees coming up. You have bills, and they feel like it's below them. But I found out too, with us even taking leases, I did one not too long ago, and I mean, it paid $1,600 for 2 days of work. So that's $800 a day. And then on top of that, he referred 3 other people that one was looking to lease and the other one wanted to buy a home. And then on top of that, he wants to buy a home. So to me, I feel like with leases, if you actually work them correctly, I think most people that rent don't actually know that they're within arm's reach of owning a home.
right.
Especially because they hear interest rates. Most of them still think you need 20%. And nowadays, especially with new construction, at least in the Houston and somewhat in the Austin area, they're giving you that money. A lot of people are showing up to the table with no money to close. And so I feel like it's a lost market. And if you don't have any leads, one thing I'm going to share, then we'll move on, is when I was doing some research for a video, it was... I did Katy, Texas real estate, which is a city outside of Houston. And one of the relative keywords that got 8,100 searches a month was homes for rent in Katy, Texas. So 8,100 people are searching, and the competition was very low because nobody wants to do leases.
Right.
And those are people looking for a home, not an apartment. An apartment was like 12,000 searches a month. And so that's something that you could easily make video content on. Are you looking for a home to rent in Katy, Texas? Well, you might actually be able to buy a home in Katy, Texas. There's 2 popular. So I think if you're taking away something today, leases are valuable. You got a 5-time icon agent that's actually still doing leases. And as well of all of her listings, she's the listing queen in this area. So don't shy away from that. So that's good. So you left that brokerage to go to Keller Williams, had success with that. What caused you to step away from that team and kind of move forward in your career?
Well, I was an individual agent at Keller Williams, went to a team, and then I left KW,
Right.
and then transitioned to eXp. And I'll be honest, eXp came like out of my blind side. Like, I didn't realize. First of all, I didn't know anything about it. This is 2015, y'all, so it's brand new. Or at least breaking the Texas market, which Texas made a big impact in the growth of eXp. If you don't already know that, it was huge. It was a title representative that said, Melissa, I know you're not happy where you're at. And the reason why I wasn't happy, look, I'm happy to get the leads, but I was working my butt off. Okay. Yeah. And because I wanted to own my own cap, I was doing something very unusual for agents. I was owning my own cap with the broker, and then I was paying my cap paying my split to my team lead.
Oh, wow.
Because when I just wanted my own numbers. I didn't want it to have team name on any of my transactions or recording. So I had to work double, and I was exhausted, and she knew I was unhappy. She said, you should talk to my friend, and he's a team lead at KW Northwest.
Okay.
And he owns several KW franchises. You should talk to him. So it was I'm telling y'all, it was one conversation at the Corner Bakery in Northwest Austin and Great Hills Trail. Myself and my colleague Liza went, and I swear he could have pulled out a napkin and gave me this calculation, but he pulled out just a regular sheet of paper copy paper. He put it on the table. He put a line down the middle, and he says, what are you making? How many transactions are you doing at your current broker? He did the math. This is what you made last year. How many, if you did the same amount of transactions at eXp, this is what you make. This is what you take home.
Right.
It was pretty significant.
You're leaving money on the table for doing the same thing.
Yes. He goes, plus you got to pay those royalty fees, those franchise fees, desk fees or whatever.
Other fees now.
Right. And so back then it was so new, and a lot of brokerages are doing, the same model because it is so successful. But back then you have to understand, like, my eyes were about this big. He's very smart at what he does. This is Gene Frederick, if you don't know who I'm talking about.
It's like eXp legend.
He's an eXp legend. He goes, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. Goes to the bathroom, comes back. And I mean, he walked off, and my friend and I were like, we're doing this like right now. So that's how I came over to eXp.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we started a team when we came on. So, my first year or two at eXp, it was like, learning the ropes. And I had no experience at that time at being a team lead. So, I was focusing a lot on my individual production. So it just made sense for us to, it was a very short-lived team situation.
Because if you have success on your own, why take away from that energy and build it on your own? So share with everybody your actual agent ID number.
It's like 681. I'm agent
681 out of over 90,000. Well, I mean, obviously we've had more than 90,000 agents, but that's really crazy. I don't even know what mine is. Honestly.
And then on my family eXp tree, I've got.
You're right up there. I mean, in your rev share, you have Glenn Sanford.
Yes.
Like right at the top. So that's pretty crazy. So brand new model. And especially like we were just at the eXp rally and they were talking about how Texas is one of the top producing states, or number one state, I think.
It's just always, competitively.
I mean, we're literally like, you could fit like 6 or 7 states inside of a small country. So, okay. So you came to eXp, and how was that transition? Was that hard for you to transition over to eXp from going from that team, and then now you're kind of on your own?
No, not at the time, because I was super jazzed about what was going to be happening. And like I said, because I had a team, we actually bought office rental space. So it was kind of the same, but different.
Yeah.
But what was really exciting was the tech aspects of eXp. And what was very unique about my situation was when I was with that team, we had a really robust CRM that can be named it's Conversion was what the name of it was. And it is now KV Core. So I was already using eXp's CRM at a previous brokerage.
Okay.
So that transition was super easy, but it was super cool to be the owner of my own account, because on the team, I was a team member.
And they owned the leads.
Yeah. They owned the leads, and they would round robin those leads.
Right.
When you have your own KV Core, you own your leads.
Yeah.
You get a lead that comes in, it's your lead. So that transition aspect was super easy for me because it's like, I already know how to use this. But then I really got into how to put the ads on Facebook. And I'm not talking about paid ads, guys. I'm talking about just doing a squeeze page. And if you don't know what that is, maybe that's a time for another podcast.
Yep.
But it is literally it was, and a lot of agents do it now, but back then it was unheard of. So people, you heard of the clickbait. So clickbait left and right. Like I was putting on Facebook, hey, look at these houses with pools under, you know, 300.
But you're putting on your own social media.
My own social media, and I was owning those leads.
Like that.
That helped me grow a really healthy pipeline of internet leads.
Okay. Now I know you had told me. So when you had KV Core, so what helped you break into your market here outside of Austin where you live? So you were talking about, when we were kind of going over this the other night, that you had another system that you did that you funneled into KV Core. Mm-hmm. And then this with all of those kind of clickbait and all those things, getting yourself in. And then I want you to touch kind of on the groups that you started and how you were basically the modern agent back then, which now is kind of what everybody's doing, but it still works too. So
yeah, some things, you know, what you say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there are some things that real estate agents were doing like in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s that I'm still doing, which is traditional farming, but I was incorporating it with the tech side of eXp.
So you're making traditional farming more modern.
Right. Yeah. Because, so, you know, if you think about traditional farming, the first thing you think about is I'm going to have to mail them those postcards, or they're going to have to get a letter in the mail, and they're probably going to throw that thing away. Mm-hmm. So as we're getting into the, you know, the new age of Facebook and ads and exposure, my thought process was, how many times can I touch the same person, same? And my goal was to become the most listing agent in my neighborhood and in the city of Manor, which is the little town right outside of Austin, going east, going towards Houston. So I'm thinking they're going to get a postcard. So I have to be very strategic on who's getting the postcards. Right. But I also want them to see my face on social media. Right. Well, at the time, that same title rep had this product that they were doing beta with agents on, which it still exists today. Back then it was called the Farm Genie. Now it's called the Genie AI. And she was like, hey, just for this beta test. And at the time it was $29. She was like, we're going to just have your own landing page website. It's going to show the statistics of the neighborhood or the city you're picking. You just have to purchase your domain name with, GoDaddy or one of these servicers. And, you just have to push your website. And I'm thinking, gosh, I'm going to have KV Core. Do I really want to push another website? But at the time, I'm moving from Northwest Austin, Cedar Park area to Manor. And I thought, how do I break into this neighborhood? And we started doing the research, and there wasn't a lot of agents dominating, right? And they surely didn't have my technology that I had just dove into with eXp. Right. So this is going to sound crazy, guys, but what I did was I got sign writers, and I had about 100 signs printed that said liveinmanor.com.
Which is a great website. I mean,
liveinmanor.com, right? Right. So I just got a bunch of H stakes, and I put those little suckers on every corner in this little city, and every entry of every subdivision I could find. And in bulk, they ended up being like $2.50. I was spending more on that in Starbucks in a day. Right. And I mean, they go to this website, and it's not like they go and they see this realtor. Hi, I'm trying to sell a house. I need your listing. It was like, oh, it's really pretty, to the eye. And it gives all the stats of the city. So they know what the median home price is. They know what the average home price is. They know how many homes sold. So the Farm Genie at the time, they were doing the data for me. And I just needed to get some photos or video for the page. So that way, when they go to the page, they see something really nice. They didn't know what they were clicking on.
So it's more of a generic kind of page.
Super generic. And it says, hey, if you want to know more, if you want to understand these stats, send me your information. Or are you curious what your home is worth? Right. Drop in your information. So I was getting leads from there. And I was turning around them, and I was putting them into KV Core. And then I was letting KV Core run that campaign. So they were, the liveinmanor.com website wasn't communicating with them. It was just a lead grab. Yeah.
Storing the lead, and you're downloading
yes, exactly.
and importing them in. I like what you said last night, that you probably thought everybody thought, oh, the city made a website now.
Yeah. The city made a cool website, Live in Manor, because it's super generic and catchy.
Right. And everybody's going to go to because I would think, oh, Live in Maine is going to show like what restaurants, what events are going on and all of those things. And so you're naturally going to get people with curiosity to go check out that page. And then when you see all the stats and what's your home worth, it's a great way to capture leads, which is kind of the standard thing people are doing nowadays. And you were doing it back then. So how did that work out for you?
It worked out very well because remember, you know, I had to, and you do want to have a good relationship with a title company that can help you. And you have Remind now, and you know, everything's much easier at the touch of your fingertips now. But
the data on people.
You want the data, so you really, you know, you don't want to send 2,000 postcards out. You want to send, you know, maybe 300 or 250 to the right sellers.
Right.
Right. They need to earn a certain amount of equity or more in their home for it to make sense for them to even want to pick up the phone and call you. So you're hitting them with snail mail.
Right.
You're hitting them on Facebook. And, you know, you can go a step further. Like I was doing the cheesy stuff. So I was putting an ad in the local paper, like half a page. Welcome back, kids. Welcome to back to school, you know.
You buying the yearbook ads? Did you do those?
Yeah. Like you're doing it all, right? So, and then you're getting listings. So they're seeing your face. They're seeing your signs. And you know, if you really go down to Live in Mainer website and scroll to the bottom, you will eventually see my face. Right. And I wanted them to be sick of me so much that they were going to call me. And that's what happened.
Yeah, but you're doing what everybody does. You keep yourself top of mind. That's why everybody does this content, all that stuff. So that way you're in people's algorithms, and you were doing that back then without even knowing what you were doing. So let's start fast forwarding to what got you to icon? What do you think actually pushed you to icon status, and what has kept you there, especially in the market? Because one thing I want to point out with you is that you don't cold call.
I don't cold call, guys.
You don't door knock.
I'm sorry.
No. But you're also not putting out 1,000 home tours like other realtors on social media. You do have a pretty active social media. You do have some Facebook page, which you can touch on. But what is actually keeping you, because I feel like you're just naturally good at farming, making relationships. And so talk about that a little bit, because I think that gives people some hope that it's not so techy, that you don't have to do all those things. You find what's for you.
So, you know, there's a few puzzle pieces missing in my business plan and things that I want to improve on. So just always, first of all, knowing what you're good at and doing that. And then, yeah, sure, I want to have an active YouTube channel, and I want to have more podcasts and reels. And those are all to be seen. Right. But you can still be successful and still do the things that you're good at, right? So just so you know, when I was doing those Facebook ads, you know, you can't go on a neighborhood page that's a closed group and start advertising. They're not going to allow you to do that. Right. So back then, just what I did was I started creating my own page.
Well, let's clarify something. Not a Facebook ad, like a paid ad, because you said they weren't even there back then.
Those were not.
So we're talking like just a Facebook post. You're just posting.
Right. So I could post on my page.
Free post.
My own page.
Right.
But I wanted a bigger reach. So I created my own. Like I live in a neighborhood called Shadow Glen. There's 2 Shadow Glen pages. One's created by an old HOA member from like 15 years ago, and the other one's the real active one. So I was like, well, why can't I have one? Because I want to talk about my business in there. Right. So I created Shadow Glen Neighborhood News. Right. And so when people are moving into the neighborhood, they're like, oh, I want to be a part of all these 3 groups. Well, that's how I was maximizing my exposure. Right. And there's no rule that you can't. And there was no rule, because guess who was the admin of that page? Me. Right. And there I was doing hey, you want to do a pumpkin carving contest? I'm going to send, 40 pumpkins to the HOA amenity center. And I would have pumpkins and carving kits, and I'd have my name tagged, all of those pumpkins. So no, you don't have to be super techie, but you can be consistent in those things and still be successful, because there's still people that remember me. Oh, you're the lady to give out free pumpkins and have a pumpkin carving contest and give out gift cards. It's just taking what you got. It wasn't like you're looking for thousands of dollars to go do ad spend and take all these ads out. You were taking what budget you had, and you were just thinking outside of the box with stuff that you already have. And nowadays it's 10 times easier because of all the technology we have. Easier. But people just get so stuck because they're afraid to think outside the box. And you want to be different. You don't want to follow the crowd and do what every agent's doing, because then you're just going to blend in with every other agent. Right. The fact that people knew you, like, you're the pumpkin lady, like you're handing out free pumpkins, like, and I do want to, good. Yeah. I do want to touch on, getting the icon and keeping the icon. So just, for me, in my particular business, I was not at a high price point. When I got into real estate, it was really important for me to work with first time buyers, right? So it was a lot of word of mouth, but that one first time buyer has a dream come true. And guess what? There's Facebook now,
Right.
and they're posting it, and this realtor helped them. And so, yes, a lot of that word of mouth gained me the business. And I also knew that I wasn't selling $600,000 homes back then.
Right.
My price point has gradually gone up, but back then it was like, if I had a $275,000 home or 250, I was totally fine with it. And guess what? When I first got into real estate, there were only like 180, 200. I was so happy when I passed 250.
Wow.
So for me, I had to do multiple transaction count to make the money that I wanted to make.
Right.
And to meet my goals and to put food on my table. So once you get that feeling of this is actually obtainable, then you don't limit yourself.
Right.
Okay, what if I sold 5 in a month? Okay, well, that's just, no. If you can do 8, why not?
Right.
Right. Or maybe 1 month you're doing 1. So that next quarter, you might need to do 6.
Right.
So that's how I was just pushing the goal line for my personal goals. And once you have a taste of Icon, I will tell you this, and you get that stock award.
Yeah.
It is an amazing feeling. And you just, in your mind, you just can't not get it again. You got to get it again.
Right. And think about it too. Like, you got the stock awards, you got all of your cap back, $16,000 cap back. You basically were paid to be at our brokerage.
Right.
You were not paying anything to them. And that's going to grow over time. And, being a 5-time Icon agent, we talked about that's $80,000 you've gotten in stock over a 5-year period. What other brokerage is doing that?
Right.
It's not. And then that does make good motivation to keep you like, I don't want to lose that status. I don't want to lose that money. You're building net worth while increasing your income. It's kind of a win-win. And so what are you doing now? So with technology and everything, especially with all this NAR stuff everybody hearing about, what are you doing to keep, because you just Iconed again this year, back in March.
I did, and it was really tough to get this last one. I will admit, I know a lot of agents struggled last year. Just so you know, I was on the struggle, and I never dove into leases. I did feel like I was a new agent again. I was like, you got a lease? I'll take those lease leads.
Right.
So those lease leads, y'all, helped me get my 5th Icon. So I worked my tail off for this last one.
I remember you were down to the wire. You're like, I need one more.
I just need one more.
And you did it, and you made it through. And I think that, like you said, that hunger is what pushes you forward. So we're trying to think, what other thing I want to touch on. So give just a few actionable steps on what made you really hit that first level of Icon though. Like, what did you do? I mean, I know you were doing all the Facebook stuff, but you had said last night that you were doing first time home buyers, and it wasn't a lot of repeat business. Your repeat business didn't really come halfway through your Icon status, your 3rd or 4th. So what were you doing besides, you said you were just focusing on first time home buyers. So kind of give something a little just actionable takeaway.
Yeah. So I really decided at one point, how far am I going to go into really wanting to list the most homes as possible? So it all becomes a numbers game at that point. Looking at the list of people in the neighborhood that needed to sell their home or could sell their home, and pushing myself to be top of mind, right? So really making the appointments. I, at one point, had I swear to you, and this is just crazy, there was no house I could go into where I didn't get that signed listing.
Wow.
At one point, right? Now, not so much now, because lots of competition out there. And I'm not, we're all trying to improve. But it was just a mind shift. So for me, making appointments, right? And having the conversation and asking for the business. So actionable item, just right off the bat, if you want to be, let's say you want to do farming and you want to be a listing agent in that neighborhood, ask yourself, how involved are you in the community? If your name is mentioned, will they know who you are? Will they know what you do? So first, you have to spend a little money. So if you got to buy pumpkins, buy pumpkins. But I actually started to buy lists from the Farm Genie, and that transitioned to the Genie now. But I started to buy the lists of people in the neighborhood that had the most equity in their homes. So first action, decide what niche you want to go into and invest into that
niche.
So if you are
focus on one thing,
the one thing. So if you want to do new construction, you better know every new construction community in your area,
Every incentive.
They're going to have your phone number the moment a house falls through. They're going to call you. So if somebody says, "Hey, I'm looking for a new construction home," I don't know, New Braunfels, Texas, wherever, you will know all those.
Right.
That's your first actionable item, is understanding what your niche is. Right. So do your homework.
You were laser
Do your
focused.
job. Right. That's just one thing for sure.
Yeah.
And then the next is just to follow through. You just got to follow through.
Right. Okay. So we're wrapping up. We're almost to our time limit. So, and we'll definitely do another episode. So one thing that we want to talk about is that we have decided to partner and form, well, she already had Texas Home Sold Group. I have joined that group with her. And so now we're going to be taking on the Houston area as well as the Austin area. So I'm super excited because we have somebody with so much production, certified mentor, all of this knowledge to impart. And then we're partnering with my marketing, my 17 years of marketing. So I feel like we're really going to be an unstoppable group. We're not going to have this cookie cutter kind of plan that most brokerages or teams have. So we want to talk about that a little bit. What initially caused you to start that group? And then what do you think we have to offer right now? And then I'll wrap that up.
So a big part of it was, okay, at some point, I'm going to have an exit plan.
Right.
I'd like an exit plan at some point. I'd like for a ship to navigate itself at some point. Mm-hmm. And I'm already a certified mentor. So, I'm already helping agents close deals as a mentor. I am an unofficial mentor to a lot of agents that are not under my mentorship.
Them calling you all the
time. They call me a lot. They ask me questions, and a lot of them are my personal friends, and I'm here to help.
Right.
So if I'm always here to help, why can't I have something that'll help all of us, right? Yeah. Let's get some leads in. Let's feed agents, in turn. And it might help me get to my next goal, which would eventually I do want to retire in real estate. But you got to make some plans and some moves to get there. So that was my first motivator. And, I enjoy helping agents and I enjoy the mentorship part of it. And hopefully I can give some of my knowledge to these agents and seeing them having success. Right.
And I think that's why we partnered so well, because I feel the same way with our RevShare group and agents that partner with me at eXp, is that I really want to give all this marketing knowledge back. But we have discovered, because I was always kind of against a team. I felt like, oh, why are you paying this extra split? You don't need to. But there are just some agents that do. They just want to plug into a system and just have some things done for them and focus on getting these leads that are provided to them under contract, because they all have different type of schedules, lives, and goals. And I think that we're going to be able to really do and just give this plug and play system with amazing branding. It's so good. It falls right between that luxury spot, but still attainable to the average person wanting to buy a house, and just super stark professional. So I'm excited about that. I want to do another episode where we're going to talk about all those resources. You guys are going to be hearing everything that you can about the Texas Home Sold Group that's going to be launching here in July of 2024. So stay tuned for that. And I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I know I felt a little rushed, and
it's okay. You're my missing puzzle piece.
Right.
Like, I've got all these things going for my business. And it's like, there's this tech marketing side that I just haven't mastered, and that's your expertise.
And same here. Right. Like, I've been in real estate a little over 3.5 years. I don't have that same knowledge. And so it's going to be a great partnership. And it was just such an aha moment at the eXp Realty, because we were just like, oh, too bad we couldn't partner together and start a team. And they're like, you can. We're like, oh, well, why didn't we do that?
These are the things that happen at rallies and conferences, guys. You're like, oh, wait, yeah, these are great ideas. So
yep. All right. So we're going to wrap up this podcast. Again, if you're not following us, go follow us on the Agent Growth Podcast. You can like on your current streaming channel. Go subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's so many marketing tips out there. And again, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.